Hello everyone, and thank you for joining our session today. I am honored and delighted to be here among so many friends and colleagues, including on this panel, and I'm deeply grateful also on behalf of the YMP team to Dr. Ismail, Dr. Dalia, and the CRC team for uniting us once again in Sharm el-Sheikh this year. And I have to say the setting this year is very special and absolutely spectacular, so thank you very much for the effort. I'm also very grateful to my co-panelists and to Dr. Mohammed Abdurraouf, who is a fantastic moderator and he has a very distinctive style. I call it iron fist in velvet gloves. So the question... The question I want to answer today is both crucial and timely. Are we, as MENA region, on the verge of becoming a global arbitration hub? Have some of our seats transformed enough to claim this prestigious status? Where do we stand now? And what more do we need to do in order to get there? And I say transform because arbitration hubs are not born, they are made through a complex process involving deep changes to the legal environment, the legal community, and even the DNA of the city itself and how it perceives itself. I call this process hub formation, and I'm coining the term. So let us reflect on our progress, challenges, and the path forward, and I think we should engage in this exercise in good spirit. And by that I mean, while celebrating the wins and the bright sides, we should also look in the mirror and consider what we need to improve, what can we do better. But why now? Why now is a good time to ask this question and reflect on our progress? The answer lies in the Arab Spring. We are in 2024 and enough time has passed since 2011 for us to be able to pause, reflect on what happened, and understand how far we have come. So much has happened, and bottom line, the Arab Spring and its ripple effects through the region reshaped arbitration as we know it. It transformed our seats, our legal profession, and even our cities. It was a decade of accelerated changes and explosive growth that we were all fortunate to witness. So bottom line, why now? Because considering everything that happened in the last 12 to 14 years, we have evolved, we have grown, and some of our seats are ready. They are closer than ever to becoming global arbitration hubs. And if there is any moment in time to achieve this, I say this time is now. The stars are aligned. So what's a global hub? What are the main seats? What benchmarks set the standard? And are there any contenders from our region? This is the Garcia Index. Some of us know it. It's a good reference point for safe and effective seats. Based on the usual benchmarks, we call them the London principles. So arbitration-friendly laws, efficient courts, logistic support, and ethical norms. The first round of seats, including the usual alpha seats that are here on the screen, and GAR describes them as the most frequently selected. Because ultimately your claim to fame as a seat is by being popular, by being frequently selected. And they set the standard for what a top arbitration hub should be or should look like. The second round included rising top seats across the globe, the yellow dots. And the red dots are from the previous screen, the alpha seats themselves. Cairo and Dubai, importantly, were shortlisted, but until May 2019, they hadn't qualified. But I say, don't rule out the MENA region just yet. Things have changed dramatically since 2019. In fact, GAR recently listed key arbitration centers in Cairo, Dubai, and Bahrain in its famous whitelist, or top centers. They are the green dots on the screen. And bear in mind, DIAC just regained its status on the whitelist around last month. And Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi were also, the centers in those cities were also recognized as strong contenders or contenders to watch. There are the blue dots on the screen. So the cities I mentioned are broadly the qualifiers for hub status in the region. Now remains only one question really. How do we get there? Is there a blueprint? Achieving the GAR seat index is not a simple checklist. It's not about ticking boxes. There is no overnight success. Imitation doesn't work, it never does. And you cannot copy-paste blueprints or mission statements from other seats. To become a global hub, a seat must transform and change at its core. It needs to engage in a deep process of evolution, which is the hub formation process I referred to, that takes it from point F, friendly seat or seat that doesn't want to miss on the bandwagon of arbitration friendliness, to point H, global hub or top seat. And I have identified for us the cardinal roots or pillars essential to attaining hub status there on the screen. Without them, a seat cannot rise to global prominence. Embrace them, and you're on your way to becoming a top seat. I call them the 4 cardinal rules of global arbitration hubs. Stating the obvious, the New York Convention is as universal as it gets. It is ratified by around 170 countries, and only 3 Arab states have not ratified it. So on minimum standards, I believe we tick the box, we're aligned with the global trend. But I say that alone is not enough. In this era of global arbitration, not signing the New York Convention makes you an outsider to the entire system. It's a baseline. You cannot and should not go below it. And conversely, and in all honesty, signing it doesn't say much about you as a seat, because what's everywhere is also nowhere. To stand out, a seat must exceed the baselines. And in the race to be more arbitration friendly or a top seat, exceeding the baselines is the first cardinal rule of global arbitration hubs. So the figure of speech is, if everyone around you is friendly or very friendly, you get by or you stand out by being extra friendly. And as we look around us in the Arab world, we see jurisdictions surpassing baseline standards. One quick example on the screen: Algeria, Tunisia, and Lebanon have adopted a more lenient or favorable local standard of enforcement, which is international public policy, and they usually do that through the mechanism of Article 7 of the New York Convention, which allows you to take off beyond the minimum baselines of the Convention. And we have here national courts rendering uncontroversially supported decisions in rather complex settings. So something you didn't really have to do if you were quite literal about interpreting the minimum standards. Abu Dhabi courts upholding arbitration agreements even after the abolition of the DIFC LCIA Center. Many of us have to deal with similar situations. And in 2022, Saudi Arabia reporting no foreign arbitral awards annulled for public policy or Sharia violations. And this is what you get when postmodernism meets national courts. The rise of a new breed of truly international courts that are shaping the future of arbitration in the region and beyond. They blend the flexibility of an arbitration institution or arbitration tribunal with judicial oversight. And they show that the seats adopting them are making big gambles towards becoming world-class hubs. Key examples include courts in Bahrain, the UAE, and Qatar, which mirror similar courts in global seats like Singapore, for example, the famous SICC Al-Qadr. In the BCDR courts in particular, and we have here members of the high management with us, judges aren't selected by the parties, but the jurisdiction is, so it's an opt-in system. And believe it or not, decisions are issued in the name of the ruler, also in English, and are similar to arbitral awards. Truly, truly astonishing. So this is the future. It's happening now, and it's happening here. Self-perception is very powerful. If you see yourself as a hub, you are either already one or you are on your way to becoming one. And that's rule number 2 of arbitration hubs. You have to have an arbitration hub culture. That's another term I'm coining. You're obsessed in a good way with becoming a hub and believe this is your calling, this is your moment, and this is what drives you forward ultimately to get you where you want to go, to become a hub. Remember, in 2019, Cairo and Dubai were considered for the Garcia Index, but were not included. Now, fast forward to 2024, and the hub culture is exploding in the region. Bahrain builds dispute hub. Saudi Arabia is new arbitration hub, while Dubai and Cairo continue on the same journey. And one perfect example of hub culture is Bahrain. The country is rapidly becoming a regional and soon global, I believe, arbitration hotspot, thanks to their 2030 vision and a bunch of cutting-edge and focused upgrades that I think are already paying out. Nicknames are already coming down raining. Gar calls it the Bahrain Arbitration Bay, and Maliki Paulsen dubbed it the Switzerland of the Gulf. And I want to spotlight the bilateral treaty between Singapore and Bahrain. I think it's yet to enter into force, creating the BICC, the Bahrain International Commercial Court, which is quite something. This court is modeled after its equivalent in Singapore, the ICC, the SICC. It will render judgments in English with judges from both nationalities and the possibility of appeals in Singapore if the parties so agree. So a very big wow factor here. And as the economist says, follow the money. You cannot become a top seat without being a business hub. It's that simple, but also genetically indispensable. And that's rule number 3 of global arbitration hubs. As we see on the left, the top financial centers from 2022, London, New York, Hong Kong, and Singapore, are also the top arbitration hubs in the Garcia Index. The correlation is straightforward: no business, no disputes, no arbitration. And at the same time, I would say being a business hub inherently ticks off many of the boxes that are required for the Garcia Index. One subject is logistic support, for example. Now let's look on the right. Dubai rising fast through the ranks and closing the gap as a global financial center, and it's sitting right outside the top 10 global financial centers. Which begs the question, is it poised to become the next global arbitration hub? I'm not going to give you the answer right away, but let's examine some numbers and perhaps it will give us some guidance and assist us in finding a suitable answer. Let's start with our beloved Cairo Center. From its creation until 2011, the CRC handled 756 cases. And from 2012 to 2023, the number increased to 1671. So a 121% rise in those condensed 10 years or so of the Arab Spring. So this increase truly reflects the Arab Spring spike in disputes, but I believe more importantly, the center's commitment to remaining a leading regional institution despite very, very fierce regional competition. And sometimes it's not about where you are, but how fast you're going. And the perfect example here is the Saudi Center, the SCCA, established in 2016. Its caseload, you're not going to believe this, multiplied by a factor of 80x by 2021, so from 2016 to 2021. And considering the time arbitration clauses take to activate and get triggered from 2016, I say these figures are absolutely remarkable. GAR noted last year that Saudi is on its path to becoming a globally recognized seat, citing strong judicial and government support and Saudi measuring itself against international standards. And here we have a list of the most popular seats in energy disputes. Again, who stands out? Dubai. And every seat around Dubai, Hong Kong included, is part of the alpha seats in the Garson Index. What does that tell you? Well, I say, what Dubai is saying, it is poised and ready. And considering that the seat index was last updated in 2019, I believe it is now due for another update, placing Dubai in the top list. And again, if we're being consistent in the hub formation methodology, I would also add Bahrain and Riyadh in addition to Cairo to the list for rising seats. We see here on the left a tribute to the UAE's rise reminiscent of the iconic Mission Impossible scenes shot in Dubai, and on the right, Sheikh Mohammed declares Diak's performance cements Dubai as a top 5 global arbitration hub, aligning with a very ambitious Dubai economic agenda, as I call it, the D33. What else do we need to consider? We need to embrace diversity and take it by the horns. The mind framework here is that diversity is not just useful, it obviously is. But I say it is essential and a non-negotiable cardinal rule for any global arbitration hub. So where do we stand on it? This is the part of looking in the mirror. It is fair to say that our MENA arbitration community has become younger, more diverse, and inclusive. But are we there yet? I'm not going to make you wait for the answer, not quite. And the image of the bull yet to be taken by the horns, I think, is a very good representation of where we stand, and saying anything else would probably disagree with how the road. Let's take a closer look. And let's start with the bright side, a very bright side. The Chambers Global Rankings from 2024 for Bahrain have achieved total gender parity, 50% of all ranked lawyers being women, up from 40% last year. This figure is truly remarkable, even compared to global statistics I'll show you in a minute. And bear in mind, these are not the arbitration rankings, these are across the board, across practice area rankings. So again, truly fantastic. Now, let's look at the Chambers rankings for women in the broader MENA region. We see Bahrain leading the region. 8 out of 13 practitioners ranked in arbitration are women. Other countries are progressing at different rates, and some are still lagging behind. The zero here on the right doesn't look good. I'll leave it at that. And on the right, I've added the figures from the US, UK, and France for benchmarking purposes. So the global average on the 3 countries is around 27% parity rate. The MENA region has a rough average of 19%, so we're not that far behind, but I would still say a significant gap to close. And here we have Diak's diversity figures for arbitrator appointments from 2023. 47% of all appointments by the Diak court were women. That's a Diak court, not parties, no co-arbitrators. So near gender parity, again, great figure. And then, and this I like very much, Diak says very bluntly, I have done my job. There is more to be done by the parties and co-arbitrators to improve the overall percentage of women appointees, which is currently at 22% and 15% respectively. So big call to action. And on call to action, I have asked my dear friend, renowned arbitration lawyer Sarah Aramco, who's not with us today, to share her insights on diversity. And quite the bottom line she has provided. While we have come strides and achieved progress, the dichotomy between what is said and what is done is significant. And then very powerfully she says, the driving force of MENA arbitration lies specifically in embracing diversity, which is another way of saying that diversity is one of the key cardinal rules for hub formation for top global arbitration seats. And this is the million-dollar argument on why diversity in nationalities and backgrounds is essential and a non-negotiable rule for hub formation. It's quite simple really, but I like to cite John Paulson because he says it better and more impactful than most. Diversity makes a seat more than just a local space, it makes it a cosmopolitan hub. That's really the bottom line. And the argument applies to diversity in all its forms. And as I conclude, let me leave you with this final reflection of mine. It goes to the essence of a global hub, what it is and what it does. Global arbitration hubs transcend being mere arbitration-friendly seats. They embody the essence of cosmopolitanism. They aren't local spaces, but grand assemblies of people who know the world and bring global knowledge and experience. They are where the world of arbitration converges and progress ignites. And finally, and most importantly, they aspire to the ultimate ideal of a global hub, bringing together arbitration providers from around the globe to serve clients from every corner of the globe. Thank you very much. Thank you.